Well, welcome everyone. Thank you for coming to the Labour Left Alliance Hustings. My name is Phil Pope. I'm chair of the LLA organising group, and sharing with me today is Tina Workman, our secretary. So I'm just going to explain a bit about why we're holding this event today. Then there's going to be an opportunity for each candidate to speak, and we have sent them some questions based on our action plan for the left, which we're hoping the candidates will answer in their replies. Tina and I might briefly ask them some further questions if we think there's anything they've omitted from their first statement. Then we've had a few questions from the audience already come in, so we'll ask those one by one and let each candidate give an answer to those questions, and then move on to the next question. I think we've got four or five questions submitted in advance. And if we have time after that, we might take questions from the audience today. So I'll start just by explaining how Labour Left Alliance has got to holding this event today. When we set up last year, we did so because we weren't entirely happy with the way the left was operating. The Centre Left Grassroots Alliance, we were critical because it didn't actually let grassroots members choose the candidates, which we don't think is good enough for an organisation that says it's representing grassroots. It didn't operate very transparently. No one knew what was happening in the negotiations, and it didn't include all of the organisations on the left. We felt that once people became NEC members, they weren't particularly accountable to the membership. There weren't very many reports come out from the NEC. So members didn't know how people were voting, what the debates were and how decisions were made. And frankly, we didn't always feel that the CLGA was selecting very good candidates. We think some NEC members didn't play a great role over the last 3 or 4 years and haven't done what the left needed. And then what really brought it to a head was that the CLGA failed to reach an agreement last year, which was disastrous for the left, and we lost those 2 crucial NEC seats, which has had repercussions today for some very close decisions on the NEC. So we really hoped we could work with others to replace the CLGA with something better, a new structure. And we've spent the last few months trying to get other groups interested in that. However, events with Starmer and the NEC starting this election process has forced the situation somewhat. So when we learned that the wheels had been put back on the CLGA, we applied to join it a few weeks ago, with the intention that if we did get into the negotiations, we would put any negotiated slate to our members, for our members to approve or reject what had been negotiated. As it turns out, we weren't accepted into the CLGA. People did try and raise it, but we weren't admitted to the negotiations. So obviously there's 2 big things that have changed this year in the last few weeks. Forward momentum has had some success, and we hope that might change momentum for the better. Particularly John Landsman hasn't been included in the slate, and we think John in particular didn't play a very good role over the last couple of years over a number of issues, notably the witch hunt and also about reselection of MPs. And the other thing that's changed is the election system. So it's now an STV system. We think that's drastically reduced the risk of splitting the left vote. It's not altogether eliminated it, but it's much, much less than what it was with the first past the post system before. So what the LLA now needs to weigh up is whether our remaining concerns about the CLGA slate the lack of choice it gives to members, the lack of transparency, the lack of accountability, and whatever judgment we make about the quality of the candidates on that slate, whether those concerns outweighs the small remaining risk of splitting the vote. So that's what today's hustings is about, letting our supporters and other members of the Labour Party make an informed choice about whether to support other candidates instead of the CLGA slate or in addition to the CLGA slate. After this hustings, LLA will be running a ballot to judge the popularity of the different candidates. And then our National Organising Group Committee and our conference, which is on the 22nd and 23rd of August, will be able to formulate and approve which candidates we will campaign for in the run-up to the voting starting at the end of September. So we'll now move on to let each of the candidates introduce themselves for 3 or 4 or 5 minutes.
Yes, I've posted in the chat the questions, our political platform that I hope comrades can address in their first introduction. Phil and I reserve the right to ask you 1 or 2 follow-up questions if we think you haven't replied properly. So please, if you can, in your first 3 to 4 minutes, because we've got 11 candidates now, we'll be overrunning quite a lot if we then have to go back to our platform. So I'll put it in the chat in a moment again, but it would be fantastic if you could answer those in your first introductions. I'm suggesting I bring in Roger Silverman as the first candidate. He was the first to send us his commitment to our platform, etc. Hello, Roger.
Okay, good morning, comrades. As an NEC member, I would campaign vigorously to restore the supremacy of party conference, uphold the democratic right of open selection of candidates for office, end arbitrary suspensions, and put forward radical socialist policies along the lines of the 2019 election manifesto. Those are the words in which I opened my 200-word statement when I submitted my nomination to the Labour Party. Too many socialists are leaving the Labour Party. Hundreds of thousands had joined to support Jeremy Corbyn. That was unfortunately a broad but a soft and passive support, and the current exodus, with large sections of the membership melting away, is the flip side of that support. It's necessary to raise the banner of socialism, not just when it's easy and there's little overt resistance, but crucially when it's tough going, when it's a question of swimming against the stream and fighting back. A strong showing will fire a warning shot across the bows of the right wing. Now, at a superficial glance, it does seem that they are back in control. The last remaining supporters of Corbyn have been expunged from the front bench. The removal of Rebecca Long-Bailey and the payment of hundreds of thousands of party funds to the party's enemies shows that Starmer appears to be desperate to reassure the 1% that he is safe. If the rumours are true, then the withdrawal of the whip from Jeremy Corbyn would be an open declaration of civil war. But what chance is there for a new Labour, Blairite, third way policy of moderation in this situation? There is no middle way. Why do I say so? The danger is not of a new era of Blairism, of a kind of new Labour, but even more dangerous of another 1931, when the former Labour leaders were drawn into a national government and the party split. Why do I say so? Because the most dangerous and catastrophic period in human history is opening up. A perfect storm, a period of successive and potentially more lethal pandemics, of rapidly approaching environmental catastrophe, of a slump on the proportions not just of the 1930s, but according to some sober economists, it would be as bad as anything since 1709. A rash of repressive and racist regimes springing up across the world, and the danger of a clash between a dying superpower in its death throes and a ferocious emerging rival. The younger generation, therefore, is going to see a definitive outcome one way or another within their lifetimes, and hence the magnificent uprising of youth worldwide. in Extinction Rebellion, in Me Too, and most spectacularly in the Black Lives Matter, uniting black and white youth across the globe. Now, socialist policies are overwhelmingly popular within Labour's ranks. What's the proof of that? The fact that hundreds of thousands of people joined the party to support Jeremy Corbyn. And I don't believe their opinions, for the most part, have changed. For one thing, Rebecca Long-Bailey won 135,000 votes, which is not bad. It's probably the best vote for any former left candidate prior to Corbyn. And second, many of those who voted for Keir Starmer did so because they trusted his assurances that he was going to adhere to Corbyn's radical programme, and in the belief that he was more likely to secure a future Labour victory. I don't believe there's been a shift to the right in the ranks of the party membership and support base. What about outside Labour's ranks? Socialist policies are supported by most of the population. The policies in Labour's 2019 manifesto have never been more popular. In opinion polls, there's clear majorities in support of renationalisation of transport and the utilities, taxing the rich, taxing higher incomes, funding the NHS, free health, social care, a green industrial revolution, etc. It's actually a media lie that the last election was Labour's worst result since 1935. As a matter of fact, it was its second best results of the last 5 elections, second best result since 2001. Under Corbyn, it won more votes than under Miliband in 2015, under Brown in 2010, and even under Blair in 2005 when he won. Only in 2017, also under Corbyn's leadership, did Labour win more votes. So I'm standing for the NEC to revive the spirits and morale of the hundreds and thousands of people who voted for Corbyn and for the millions who voted Labour under his leadership, and to put socialism firmly back on Labour's agenda. Thank you.
Thank you, Roger. I can't help notice you ignored a few of our questions. So can I ask you before we move on to the next person, which is, you know, I'm in Labour Against the Witch Hunt. So for me, it's incredibly important that we have at least one person on the NEC who will speak out on the witch hunt that we've witnessed in the last 5 years, which was, in my opinion, a concerted attempt to conflate anti-Semitism with anti-Zionism. And what would you do about that?
I wrote a long article about Zionism and anti-Semitism. I could speak for a long time on this. It was
Make it brief.
Sorry?
Make it brief.
Yes. Okay, I will make it very brief. I mean, I think it's an utter travesty. It's a trick. There is no, of course, there are anti-Semites in the Labour Party, a tiny handful, and they should be driven out. But the people who've been expelled, for the most part, it's an absolute disgrace, an absolute insult and a slander to call them anti-Semite. All I'd say is, if anybody wants to read more of my opinions on that, I have a website called silvermanfornec.org, and you're welcome to read my article on that there.
Thank you, Roger. Who should we take next? How about Chaudhry?
I would like to congratulate to LLA for organising this only hosting for NEC candidates by any group and organisation. Tina, can you hear me?
Could you turn your camera off, then we might hear you better.
Okay, how about now? Can you hear me now?
I've turned your camera off now. I think that's better already, yes.
Yes, so starting with the congratulating LLA for holding this hosting by any group or organisation, putting NEC candidates to this hosting. My name is Chaudhry, Qamer Iqbal. I've been party members for the last 12 years, a proud socialist, unionist, and I've been working in a local party structure in various positions, including branch chair, branch vice chair, branch secretary, and then CLP delegate, CLP secretary at the moment, branch chair, LCF delegate, regional and national conference delegate. So I'm equipped with knowledge of local party structure. I have been part of every election campaign since I joined the party, locally, regionally, and nationally. I have wealth of experience working with party officials, campaigners, and activists. And one of the most recent achievements, if I can quickly mention about European election, where I was responsible for a European election campaign in my CLP. And because of the huge volume of Labour votes casted in our CLP, we were able to beat all the other parties in Ealing Borough wide. So that was a quite big achievement where we beat the whole national and local, regional trend by beating all the parties. My campaign for NEC position is based on the same platform and agenda as LLA, basically for every grassroots members and for their right. Being signatory of LLA, I signed up for their minimum pledges. Last time, when there were by-election a couple of months ago for BAME position, and I was honored to be voted and endorsed as a BMA candidate for this NEC election last time. I refused to sign for BOD pledges. My CLP was the only CLP when I was secretary of CLP, which passed a motion against the implementation of IHRA definition without the protection of freedom of speech. My pledge on open selection, very basic right of every member to have a say who can represent them at various levels. I mean, who can know better than us, where we had an MP who was triggered in last general election, who had a vote of no confidence, yet NEC decided to impose him on against the wishes of members. So who would know better than us to the implementation of open selection, the way they can be implementing on the local CLP. So I have been a strong supporter of open selection. So members should have a right. If you're serving your membership, if you're serving your party, if you're serving your community, then you have no fear of this initiative, open selection. Party conference as a sovereign body. Party conference has to be recognized as a sovereign body. No decision to be made by few individuals behind closed doors. Transparency and openness. No one should be able to override decisions and policies agreed by thousands of delegates elected by the CLPs attending over 3-4 days time. So conference has to be recognized as a sovereign body. No suspension based on political views. As an NEC member, I will not support any suspension based on political views. I will be campaigning for a fair, transparent complaint process where justice can be seen delivered in a timely manner. My commitment in this regard has been crystal clear. I was one of the few NEC candidates who signed a joint letter against suspensions of Comrade Councillor Joe Bird, Mo Azam, Mirza Mahmood, Keith Hussain, and Graham Durham just a few months ago. I was the only NEC candidate who announced to have a sit-in protest outside the headquarters before calling it off after Joe Bird was reinstated. So no suspension based on political views or politically motivated on this. NEC reports. If I would be elected as an NEC member, I would making sure that communication has to be communicated to all members. All reports have to be communicated. All the NEC members have to be accountable to CLPs and members. NEC members have to attend CLP meetings at regular intervals. NEC members should also be able to get the support from party to perform their roles, because when I was trying to get some of my emails to some of the NEC members last year in regard to the selection process, and some of them were able, sorry, we can't go through each and every email. That was kind of response, and I wasn't getting any reply from those NEC CLP members. So that was quite disappointing. If you're not able to, you clearly know that what it takes to be NEC member. So if you're not able to perform and meet the requirement and fulfill your duties, then I would say that those NEC members should not be there in first place. Fighting for socialism and socialist policy, democratic ownership and control of a planned economy, the policies which can win us election, the policies which are already being implemented. These are Labour policies. These are the policies which were in great manifesto given to us by Jeremy Corbyn in 2017. And these policies have already been implemented by Tory government. So we will be campaigning for these policies.
Okay.
And
Could you wind up now, Comrade, please? Could you wind up now, Comrade, please?
Yes. So I would just quickly going to say I would be campaigning against any form of racism, discrimination based on any character, whether it be anti-Semitism, Islamophobia, or transphobia. So I will be raising your voice. I'll be your strong voice on NEC.
Thank you very much, Chaudhry. A few comrades have asked why they can't see you. We had to turn his camera off because his connection was a bit choppy. But if you turn your camera back on now, that'd be great, so people can see what you actually look like. I should point out, Chaudhry has answered all our questions very well. Thank you very much for that. We've not designed them to get anybody in trouble or expelled or whatever. We believe these are the questions that go to the heart of the current fight in the Labour Party. After Corbyn's defeat, we are at a really crucial state in the what is a class war in the Labour Party. And if we don't have at least one person on the NEC, ideally 9, who will speak up openly and honestly and transparently about what is going on and how to fight against what's been happening, I think we're in big trouble. So that's why we're asking those questions. It's not to get anybody into trouble, but believe us. The next person is Carol Taylor-Spedding, please.
Hi, I'm Carol Taylor-Spedding. I live in New Biggin by the Sea, which is in the Wansbeck constituency of Northumberland. As you can probably tell, I'm not from the Northeast, but I moved up here when my partner, who is from the Northeast, retired. I've been a teacher since 1978, but have come into politics only recently, joining the Labour Party in 2018. My interest in things political first started when I became a union rep at my school and realised that the government would not audit the teachers' pension scheme because they knew it was paying for itself, but they wanted to raid it in the name of austerity. I went on strike twice. I also learned the appalling treatment of older teachers whose only crime was being a very good teacher and therefore paid too much. I joined the Labour Party because I could see what austerity was doing to people in this country. And I was beginning to learn how the establishment was making sure that money was flowing from working people to the elites. And of course, I believe in Jeremy Corbyn as a man of integrity and compassion. I became an activist immediately on joining and canvassed in 4 elections. 3 we won and 1 we lost. Just before the 2019 general election, I saw the KONP Keep Our NHS Public film Under the Knife, which explained what the 2012 Health and Social Care Act meant and how the NHS is being privatised by stealth. My partner and I funded showing the film in 4 venues across Northumberland because we felt so strongly that people needed to know what's going on. I believed passionately in the 2019 manifesto. I was devastated when we lost, and then equally devastated when Rebecca Long-Bailey lost the leadership contest. We need a left-wing majority on the NEC. Minutes and voting must be published for transparency. We must fight to protect the manifesto and for even more radical socialist policies like making charging for education illegal, public ownership, democratic ownership, nationalising the banks. These sort of things have to be done. We must fight to democratise the party and make conference the only way in which policies are decided, and of course, open selection of MPs. We must call out the myth of an anti-Semitism crisis in the Labour Party. I will campaign against the Board of Deputies' 10 pledges, against the IHRA definition of anti-Semitism, the examples of which conflate anti-Zionism and criticism of the Israeli government with anti-Semitism. I have also been very disappointed to find that the Labour Party has a problem with racism. The extremely poor response to the appalling abuse that Diane Abbott and Dawn Butler are and have received for years. The way in which Diane Abbott and Belle Ribeiro-Addy were treated because they were on a Zoom call with Jackie Walker. This is, of course, how signing up to the 10 pledges is stifling free speech. The fact that the alleged incidents of racism revealed in the leaked report have not been dealt with. Keir Starmer calling BLM a moment. There is great anger amongst our BAME members, and quite rightly so. This must be called out. The COVID-19 pandemic has shown that capitalism just doesn't cut it when the chips are down. Socialist policies have been necessary for people to survive. It's almost as if the Tories have been working through our manifesto for the last 5 months. The crisis has really highlighted the inequalities in the education system. Private schools went full steam ahead from day one of the lockdown. State schools didn't even have the laptops needed for students to work from home. The danger, of course, is that the cost of these policies is going to be borne by the working class. Capitalism is destroying the planet and exploiting working people. We need socialism to ensure good standards of living, secure employment, decent housing, green policies to protect the Earth's resources and climate, healthcare for all, and social care that protects the vulnerable, elderly, and disabled. We need policies that give the next generation a future. And when elected, I will campaign for exactly that. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Carol. You're almost stuck to the time. Thank you. So thank you for answering our question on the BOD 10 pledges. And you're quite right to say that this creates unpersons. This creates, in a McCarthyite fashion, people we are not allowed to speak to in meetings anymore, which is an absolute outrage. And that would make us, if we speak with them, that would make us, become suspended potentially. I would like to hear what you think about the IRA definition on anti-Semitism, which has been adopted by the Labour Party. And
well, the actual definition itself is quite vague, but it's the examples that they give, which absolutely conflate criticising the Israeli government or anti-Zionism with anti-Semitism, which of course is not true. We should all be free to criticise any government that is doing things that are unacceptable. Which of course is what's happening in Israel at the moment with what's happening to the Palestinian people and the way that they are being treated in Israel. Even the ones in Israel itself are very much, even the Palestinians that live in Israel are very much discriminated against. And the treatment of the Palestinians in the occupied territories is something that really is not acceptable at all. And if you're not going to be able to speak out and for these people, I mean, even Nelson Mandela said in speeches back in the 90s how he felt that the Palestinian question had had very great similarities to the South African situation. So if we're not allowed to speak out against that and be accused of anti-Semitism, then that is not acceptable at all.
Thank you very much, Comrade. I'm bringing in as the next speaker Alec Price, then Ekua. And I would like to say that also that not everybody of the candidates has yet replied in writing to our platform. The reason we're asking for your views in writing is so that we can put it online when we're opening our ballot. So it'd be very useful if you haven't done so yet, if you could just quickly, if you agree with everything, just say agree, or just say I agree with so-and-so, but I have a problem with that. That's not a big deal. But I think our members, we've got about 2,400 people who are who can vote in this ballot that we're putting on, and they would like to hear your views on that matter. Okay, Alec Price next, please.
Thank you, Chair. I'd just like to thank LLA for actually organising this Hustings. I've never known there to be an NEC candidate Hustings before in the Labour Party, so hopefully this won't be the last. For me, I think the objective need for socialism has never been greater. You look at the environmental crisis, you look at the economic crisis we're going to be heading into, and of course, the pandemic. Now, I work in the NHS and have been on the front line during this crisis. It's obvious to me that it is workers who keep society running. But at the same time, workers don't control the direction society goes in. We do the work, but we don't have control of what work we should do. And for me, that says we need socialism. Socialism is about, as a definition, is about putting the needs of the many ahead of the private profits of the few. But we're still dominated in this country and across the world by big business and its needs to maximise profit. And it's aided in that with its friends in Parliament, with its friends in the media, and with its friends in the state generally. So socialism means ending that way of running society, and it means allowing the workers who actually do the work, who keep society ticking over, it means putting them in control of our own destiny. And I think the reality is, if we don't move to a society that is like that, then we're going to end up with all sorts of sort of barbarism, basically. When you look at the climate stuff, especially, it's not a sort of ideological question. It's a kind of practical question of how do we keep the show on the road? How do we carve out a decent existence for all on this planet? I just don't think capitalism can do that. Now, in the Labour Party itself, there is a section of people who still believe that capitalism is the best way of running society. Tom Watson, at the conference when Jeremy Corbyn won the leadership for the second time, came out and said capitalism isn't the enemy. And he's just completely wrong. But we've got a set of people who seriously believe that, and they believe it to such a sort of zealoty point of view that they're prepared to wreck socialists within the Labour Party, including Corbyn himself, because they're so scared of the ideas that working class people should run society. I think at the current time, and I'm talking about very immediate term policies here, we're in a situation where it's not just the Labour Party where there's elections going on, but there's elections going on for General Secretary in the 3 big trade unions. And all those 3 trade unions will be representing workers who have been on the front line during the COVID crisis. And the government at the moment is not prepared to give those workers a decent pay rise. And I think the best thing the Labour Party could be doing right now to show its support for working class people is to demand that this government offers at least a 10% pay rise across the board and a minimum wage of at least £12 an hour. And I think if the Labour Party can put those kinds of ideas forward in this period of the next few months, that will show what side the Labour Party is on. And I think it will have huge support amongst the electorate. At the moment, we don't really hear very much at all from the Labour Party. And consequently, most workers don't even know who Keir Starmer or Angela Rayner even are. In terms of the questions put forward by LLA, I have given a written response, and I basically agree with all of them, but there are a couple of qualifications, and if I've got time, I would just read out what those qualifications are.
Not much, do it quickly.
Okay, so amongst the ones about the suspensions, etc., I was a little bit unsure about the 3-month committing to everything being dealt with within 3 months. I think there might be some occasions where that isn't quite possible. And in terms of the BDS, boycotting Israeli goods, etc., I don't think it's a racist campaign, but I'm not actually a supporter of that particular campaign. I think that the solutions for Israel-Palestine are for both Israeli workers and Palestinian workers to rise up against the Netanyahu governments, which, by the way, I think there are actually protests going on at the moment against his government, but also against the sectarian leadership of the Hamas leadership as well. So there's a couple of qualifications in there that you can get more detail on that if you read what I've said, which I'm not summarising particularly well. But considering the time, I will leave it there and feel free to question me as we go on.
Thanks very much, Alec. I'm bringing in Ekua now to have 4 to 5 minutes, I think we're up to.
Okay, thank you, Tina. Hello, everybody. My name is Ekua Bayunu. I stand in solidarity with the Labour Left Alliance on its rationale for holding these hustings. And I'd like to thank you all for welcoming me onto this platform, but also into your homes. Be assured that normally I'd bring cake. I would like to serve on the Labour Party NEC as your grassroots candidate, because I believe I have the skills, experience, passion, steadfast and sustained commitment to socialist values built up over nearly 40 years working with and for the most disadvantaged communities in the UK as a community arts activist. I am an active member at Branch within the Labour Party, CLP and LCF levels. I currently hold the position of Arts and Culture Officer for my CLP, which is Manchester Central. I am the Secretary of Manchester Labour Women's Forum, which covers and represents women from 5 Manchester CLPs. And I am a delegate member to the LCF, which also covers the same 5 CLPs. I was a Manchester Central CLP delegate to the party conference in 2019. And I absolutely will campaign for conference to be the Labour Party's sovereign body. As a socialist, I'm a member of a range of organisations working closely to support the Labour Party, including the Socialist Health Association, the Greater Manchester Branch, Grassroots Black Left, for whom I'm Joint Northwest Coordinator, along with Anyana Ndukwe, and various networks such as Don't Leave Organise, Manchester Central Labour Left. I am here today supported by Labour Black Socialists, and I support our other candidates, Liz Okokon, Ade Adeshine, Joyce, Reid. I also support Jermaine Jackman. I am committed to the trades union movement, and I'm currently working as a local rep with the Artists Union England as it builds its membership from a workforce who have been under sustained attack by successive Tory governments who very much understand the vital role we play in empowering communities. You only have to look at the role of artists in the Extinction Rebellion and the Black Lives Matter movement to understand what I'm saying. I am also a member of Unite Community. In terms of the key priorities I see for the NEC, which I think very much align with what LLA have put on their platform, we do need to focus on the democratisation of the Labour Party and really fight to retain the gains we've made through the Democracy Review and agreed at conference 2018, 2019, ensuring the structures supporting our transformation into a socialist member-led party, for example, women's branches and BAME branches, are rolled out and properly resourced across the country. Of course, my mouse is being a bit annoying. I'd like, again, to ensure that the voice of BAME, though I am actually going to say, I'm going to use black. For me, black encompasses any person from a community impacted by white supremacy. So that's the word I'm going to use from now on. So that black members, the voice of black members is properly heard. We have been subject to levels of abuse within the party which have hampered our ability to raise our concerns and the issues of our communities fully. It is essential that all candidates commit to engaging with black self-organized groups as part of committing to understanding and championing all people in our country. I believe in this international solidarity with socialist causes across the world. I support Labour Left Alliance commitment to Palestine. I oppose attempts to label the boycott, disinvestment and sanctions campaign as anti-Semitic. I oppose any attempts to conflate anti-Zionism with anti-Semitism. I stand in solidarity with my Jewish socialist comrades and their right to self-organize. And I oppose any attempts by the leadership to undermine party democracy. We must stand by the conference motion in support of Kashmir. We must ensure that we are informed and aware of the suffering and struggles of communities, of all communities in the UK and across the world. I will fight for the open selection process of candidates at both parliamentary and local level to ensure that our commitment on the left to the selection of a diverse and representational candidates who are also answerable to members at constituency level is met. I was selected as councillor candidate for Hume Branch in Manchester for the postponed council elections in May 2020. This is now rolled forward to May 21. I was actively supported by local comrades who worked hard to open the selection process so that they could engage with the candidate of their choice. I commit to scrapping the trigger ballot process. It is essential that we ensure the complaints and disciplinary processes within the party are fair and unbiased and understood by all of us, through a robust overhaul. However, I also believe that all individuals are capable of change and that we, for example, could implement a thorough training and political education process during suspensions, alongside other punitive measures. I agree that all disciplinary cases processed during the last 5 years should be subject to an unbiased re-examination. This is urgent and paramount. Natural justice must be brought to bear. But I'd also say the same for any complaints during the same 5-year period, to bring justice for those who have been left exposed and damaged by their concerns going uninvestigated, and to those who have worked against the aims of the Labour Party. All comrades on the NEC must work to retain, rebuild membership through providing a clear communication process between the knowledge concerns of grassroots members and the leadership. I will publish regular reports of NEC meetings, including details of how I assume, and other NEC members have voted. But as importantly, I will commit to structures agreed with grassroots comrades to ensure I am listening to and aware of their concerns. Most importantly, the NEC must work closely with the membership to build a strategy for the next general election. Outside of the Labour Party, I work continuously to creating structures that build engagement by and for working class communities, recognising specific needs of the Black working class. I am an active member of Tenants Union and have been active in a number of campaigns, especially in my local Moss Side branch, as well as supporting campaigns about HMOs, Airbnb, homelessness, Section 21 evictions. I am leading on work with social housing tenants. Social housing is my passion. I'm very much a grassroots activist. Even this year, I helped organise a Stop the Windrush deportations rally. I organised a Stop Police Brutality, particularly around tasering in Black communities. And I also worked on a campaign to demand the NEC roll out guidelines for setting up BAME branches. Okay. Thank you. I look forward to more questions.
I was just going to start winding you up. Thank you very much, Ekua, and thank you for addressing all our points. Well done. I appreciate it. I'm going to take Mark McDonald next, and then Iram Woolley. Hello, Mark.
Hello. First, I'm just going to talk a bit about my background and then about the issues and concerns and some of the issues that you've raised and questions that you've raised that you want addressing. In relation to my background, I worked for a number of years in A&E and in the operating theatre. And it was when they closed down the hospital I was working with under the Conservative government under Thatcher and then Major that I got involved and became much more of a union activist. I was a union shop steward at the time. And I went to night school and I became a barrister at the age of 33. I from then set up and worked in the United States on the death penalty, setting up a large organization working in civil rights centers in Tennessee, Alabama, New Orleans, and Florida, campaigning against the death penalty. I've lectured and debated on issues on capital punishment across the world. I then moved on to an innocence project, which I ran, which was one of the largest innocence projects at the bar, exposing flaws in our criminal justice system. I then worked in Palestine. I worked in Ramallah, Nablus, Hebron, Bethlehem and Jerusalem on human rights, teaching international human rights to local lawyers, and came back to the UK and set up Labour Friends of Palestine. And with some great colleagues, we have now become one of the largest organisations in the labour movement, exposing the human rights and atrocities against the Palestinian people. I have written and debated and discussed issues on Palestine now for the last 10 years. I've been on television, news outlets, and generally every time Israel decides to bomb Gaza and kill the hundreds of people that it has a tendency to do within Gaza, I'm on television and on the news debating the issues around Palestinian human rights. I've stood for Parliament twice, in 2005, and most recently in 2019 in Stoke-on-Trent. I fought a good battle in Stoke-on-Trent, a great city, but unfortunately was a victim of the Red Wall collapse of the Labour vote. I was Jeremy Corbyn's lawyer. I've been Jeremy Corbyn's lawyer a couple of times, most recently, I think in 2016, when I was instrumental in ensuring that he was able to remain on the ballot. So he was able to be the leader in 2017. I was the lawyer at the NEC meeting, and it was my legal opinion that won the day to ensure that he remained on the ballot. Quite obviously, I'm both a friend and a comrade to Jeremy and a large supporter of him. That is really in relation to my background. Can I say from the start that I don't think that we should divide the left vote. I am a supporter of the slate. We need to get socialists on the panel. I am asking for vote number 7. So vote for the 6, but vote for me as number 7. That's where I'm coming from. We have to remain united at the left, and we have to make sure that we get left people on the NEC, and splitting the left slate is not going to enable us to do that. Going to some of the issues that you've raised, quite proper issues and questions. I ran to be the treasurer of the Labour Party 14 years ago when I saw an issue in relation to transparency and lack of accountability. I ran a large grassroots campaign, but I was defeated by the union bloc vote for the treasurer, so wasn't able to succeed. But it said something to me about the NEC, and it focused a spotlight on it. My biggest concern with the NEC is the democratic deficit. The NEC, close to elections, chooses MPs for safe Labour seats. This is done pretty much in secret by closed committees who decide who become our members of parliament. MPs who are retiring don't retire until close to a general election, because the deal's done, that they become a peer, and that power is handed over to the NEC and effectively the leadership to place their people in safe seats across the country. And to me, that goes to the heart of our democracy. And so what I want to do is open it up to more transparency, making sure that stops immediately, make sure that we understand what's going on in the NEC, and we get greater transparency and greater accountability.
Okay,
I can see you winding me up, so I'm going to stop now.
And now I have another question for you, as you can guess.
Yes.
What do you think about the IRA definition on anti-Semitism, and would you campaign to overturn it? The Labour Party's commitment.
The fact is, we have adopted it as a Labour Party. Let me tell you about my position on this. I have assisted and helped members who have been accused of anti-Semitism over the years. I think I'm the only candidate looking at this who features on the Campaign Against Anti-Semitism website as being an anti-Semite, of which I'm accused of. The Daily Mail went after me. The Daily Telegraph went after me. I am hopefully a successful barrister, and I do well in my community, and hopefully I wanted to become an MP, but I became the focus of the spotlight of the Daily Mail and the Daily Telegraph because I dare to have an opinion on this issue. It is appalling what is going on, but what I have tried to do over the last 15 years is actually focus on what the most important issue is, which is the rights of the Palestinian people. I have done that constantly and exposed the human rights abuses, and every time we have this debate, every time we have this discussion, we do not talk about the human rights abuses that are going on in Palestine. Every time we move the agenda to talk about the definition or the BOD, we play a different agenda and we do not focus upon the people of Palestine. And that is where my focus has been for the last 15 years.
That's a qualified no then. Sorry to that. Okay, you're a lawyer, I can tell. I'll leave it there.
It's not about being a lawyer. I'm a human rights activist. And I think the problem is it's in the nuance. It's not black and white. And I mean, as much as you, Tina, might want to hope it to be black and white, it isn't. It's actually about human rights abuses that are going on against the Palestinian people. And that's what I've been working hard to make sure we stop.
Okay, comments. If panelists could also look at the questions in the Q&A at the bottom of your screen while you are listening to others, you can also answer a few questions. A few panelists have already done that. We are picking some of those questions to put to the candidates afterwards, but if you could also answer some in writing, that would be fantastic to speed things up. I was going to bring in Iram, but I'm not sure if you've left. Iram, are you there? If not, there you are. Okay, you're next, please. 5 minutes. And if you could address our platform, that would be fantastic.
Good afternoon, Tina. It's lovely to see you, and thank you to also Phil Pope for hosting this brilliant, which is a well-deserved opportunity for our party to address the issues which are going on. So I hope you are happy with that. I'd just like to say that I am the BAME woman, and I have a very strong voice. I've been fighting on racial equality issues since 1998 in the TUC, Trade Union and Labour Party conference. I'm originally from Oxford, and I attended the same school as Francis O'Grady, the General Secretary of the Trade Union Congress, and also an Assembly member. I'm also a school governor, and I champion the inclusion for those who have been left out by society. What people actually appreciate about me is my uniqueness and my strength. I'm also an author. I've also had letters of appreciation from not only my LCF, but my Labour group leader for my outstanding contribution for a 3% majority of the Dormers Wells by-election victory, which was actually an excellent result for an autumn. I was the first ever to get campaigners door knocking from all parts of Ealing and Southall and outside to take part. I've attended the church and mosques and gurdwaras before lockdown, and I've also organised interfaith events for building community cohesion of different sects. And now, as you know, the nominations will be closing on the 27th of September 2020. So if you have an online meeting between now, then I would be more than happy for you to propose me what I stand for and why you can support me. Don't believe a word I say, but my father was a postman for 43 years. I joined Royal Mail as a union rep for 12 years, from the CWU and through to working in the most militant branch within the UK. And then I became a floor manager, managing over 100 postmen and women. I'm also the West London Community Unite Women's Officer. I'm serving my movement, and I will work with any leader. I will help the growth and success of the party. But why I have been challenged? I've been challenged because I'm claiming my space as a BAME woman, and I always say, if not me, then who? And tell me why I can't do it. I'm here to reach out to the broad church, listen, and I have a good understanding of dealing with online abuse and the trolls. I have been the Labour group observer at local level and the auditor, and I will need your support to run. But I will also be loyal in the representation, proportional, making a difference in society to add value and making positive contributions at all levels so that your voices are heard. Before, I'd just like to say, I'd like to thank you for your patience during this extremely difficult time, even on this Zoom right now. And despite all the huge knockbacks we're having as activists doing our virtual solidarity Zooms, I see the inequality that COVID has had upon the BAME community, and I thank everybody who has collectively worked with the union, despite shielding. Yes, I saw that, Mum, in your chat. Yes, I am a mum. But firstly, we need to think out the impacts of the pandemic that have been caused pressure and the job losses. BA workers have been threatened with new terms and conditions. This is absolutely unacceptable. I've written not only to my Assembly member, but my MP as well. And I've also raised some huge concerns about the petitions following George Floyd's death. The BLM protests was a solidarity of a silent volcano which has addressed not only the unconscious bias, but secondly, I've also personally bridged the delivery of crates of fresh fruit to key workers in the NHS London. I've delivered videos to Unite Union, to support, praising for our heroes, and I've been one of the first to volunteer to the Felix, to the socially excluded groups in London, and get the food bank deliveries. What this has shown is there has been a good grassroots, huge potential and political power. And I think that I strongly support democracy. And I have a community leadership. I would have to go now because I'm actually on another call. So I've seen your message, which I will respond to in writing after I have had a look and read through it. But thank you once again, Tina. I have to log off. If there are any questions in the chat box, please forward them to me and I will look into it and come back to you.
The next speaker will be, I think, Steve Maggs. Then I'm bringing in Joyce, and then Ahmad and Crispin. So we've got quite a list. But Steve, are you there? If not, I'm bringing in Ahmad now. If you could speak next, if you're prepared.
Yeah. Thank you, comrade, for organizing such a important event. It gives us an opportunity to speak to the wider membership what we want in our Labour Party and to become a member of NEC. I have been a Labour Party member for over a decade and a member of Unite Union. I am a firm supporter of socialist value. The current pandemic has reinforced our conviction that we need a public funded NHS and effective and efficient public services. The current economic model has already created a huge gap between rich and poor. And if regulations is not brought in quickly, the mega corporations will eat up the states and the societies. Corporate greed has destroyed the whole ecosystem and our planet is in danger. I'm fully committed to empowering the grassroots membership and strengthening democracy at every level in the party to root out hatred and prejudice and promoting inclusiveness, fraternity, and comradeship. I'm proud to represent Labour Party as a parliamentary candidate in 2019 general election in my local constituency, Carshalton and Wallington. I stood as a Labour candidate in the last 3 local elections. I have been Bayunu officer, vice chair, and since 27, I'm chair of my CLP. On the issue of NEC, I will say that our party needs structural reforms in the NEC. We need structural reform in our party bureaucracy. It should be more representative than a bureaucratic organization. I will support that most offices in the party bureaucracy should be elected offices. The current economic crisis, particularly the post-COVID, has particular challenges for the working class and marginalized sections. So we need a very strong socialist people to be there in the party's NEC and party's central leadership to protect the interests of the working class and marginalized people. I have no hesitation to support the Palestinians, and I don't think so supporting Palestinians will put you into anti-Semitism. I acknowledge anti-Semitism is an issue in our party, in our society, but weaponizing it to silence people, I don't support it. Broadly, I support the demands of the LLA. So that's what I want to say.
Oh my God, you're the only candidate who's stuck under 4 minutes. Thank you very much, Ahmad, and thank you for answering our questions. It's appreciated. Okay, I'm not sure if Joyce and Steve are with us. So Joyce, here.
Yeah, I'm not quick to speak, but let I just try. Yes, I'm not typing very far along here because I have hidden disability, but I'm going to aim to go. So if I go over, just stop me. But in terms of typing, that would be a while for me. Thank you very much. I want to thank you all for organizing this event. I want to thank all those who have contributed so far and will contribute later, and to all those who are at their homes, wherever they are, listening in. And we want to thank you most wholeheartedly for your support. I am from Croydon. I live in the borough of Croydon. I have been a member of the Labour Party for many, many years. Most people know me in the field of campaign. I campaign on every issue that has some form of injustice aligned with it. I've been a strong supporter of many different groups, most especially those who are marginalized. I am also the chair for the LCF for Croydon. I was also the outgoing chair actually for the constituency as well, for the LCF presently. I am somebody who stand up, speak up, and not afraid to say exactly what's true. When I see something that is wrong, doesn't sit right, I'm very quick to address it. I will campaign tirelessly in every form, and I will campaign for open selection. I will campaign for the conference to be the southern body. I think the members are the ones that should have a voice, should have the voice and have their vote. We have a lot of members from the party who have been expelled, suspended for whatever reason they be, many times without giving a reason, clear reason. And I believe those are unjust and that they should and such should be addressed. And I hope that this will happen in the future. You have me on the NEC. That is something that remains dear to my heart. And we must not commit to a trigger ballot. I believe that we should actually have members playing a very important role in the selection of the MP, whatever they so desire. I stand very close-heartedly when I think about what is happening in the Labour Party with our racism, etc. We need to have a democratic process in the Labour Party that listens to its members, including its Black members, because we are very often the backbone, but very often forgotten how crucial and important our vote is. The Black members, as agreed, because in the 2018 conference, we agreed, and the Black members has agreed in Democratic Review 2018 conference that must be included. If we do not challenge racism that exists in the Labour Party, no denial, factual information I have, we will not move forward as we should. So we need to clean our house out before we find the faults some other places. We must fight racism in all its form, and that is something that remains very close to me. The policies that the Labour put forward over the next 4 years, we must listen to our members and our communities, not just the red wall or whatever walls that are there. Black votes have been taken for granted for too long. And we notice as well under our present leader, the same thing is happening. Keir Starmer, we're still having our votes be taken for granted. And Keir Starmer has shown little change that will, because we've seen what happened to Diane, to Bell and Dawn, etc. And it's a very big concern to us. We are actually losing members. That I don't want us to see happening. For those of us who are considering leaving the party, please stay with us. We must put up the fight. We owe it. We're socialists and we must continue to champion the cause for those who are left behind. And when we see injustices, that's what we must fight as socialists. We must stand up and speak up for the things that doesn't sit well in the party. That is something I am for. I've played many, many different roles in the Labour Party, so I wouldn't spend all my time to let you know. I've been a BME officer, I've been the chair for the constituency, I've been the chair for the LCF, etc. I have gone many places throughout the country and helped to set up many BME forums and campaign on issues that matter so closely and so dear to our heart. When it comes to social housing and the exclusion of children from school, it remains very close and so dear to me. Something needs to be done. And I hope that when you vote for Joyce Reid will help to bring about that change. And I please ask you to support Ekua, Dr. Liz Akokon, Ade, and all those who mean well for us. I don't just want a lot of long talk. We must genuinely want to support the Labour Party, be the socialists, and stand up, speak up, and represent all those members who will put us forward for the Labour Party. Long may we continue to fight socialism. We must stand firm. Thank you.
Thank you, Joyce. And a little follow-up question for you, if you don't mind. What do you think about the IRA definition of anti-Semitism, and can we do anything about it?
I think it is disgusting what is going on. The right of the Palestinian people, they, I find that they are treated poorly, no doubt, no question about it. And human rights abuses, as somebody who has been a social worker for many years, every form of abuse, I fight against it. And I believe that that needs to be addressed. So in terms of the anti-Zionism and the anti-Semitism has been lumped into one, but may we just find our voice and continue to speak up for whatever that is wrong. So every injustice, we must fight against it. Human rights, all kind of abuse, it's wrong. Thank you.
Thank you, Joyce. Steve Max, please, for 4 minutes.
Hi, yeah, almost certainly won't use my full 4 minutes. My CV isn't as long as impressive as some of the other candidates. Sorry, I dropped off before I had some technical issues. So my kind of brief Labour Party CV. I'm currently chair of Harborough CLP. I joined in 2016 after being a supporter. I was at an anti-austerity rally and people were handing out the vote for Jeremy Corbyn flyers, and I just had that kind of moment where I thought, there are enough people just at this rally, if we join as supporters, we can have a left-wing socialist leader of the Labour Party. And I don't want to call it any kind of insight, but I just thought at that moment that this was the time, this was a chance for left-wing and socialist members of the party to gain a real foothold and to change, to change the narrative nationally and within the party. So I joined then, and I've kind of built up my activity since then. Became a full member in 2016, campaigned in 2017 locally, and then stood in 2019 in local elections, and was then agent and campaign manager. Didn't choose to do both those roles, but I ended up being agent as well for our brilliant black female candidate in Harborough, which I think opened a lot of eyes in Harborough and in the party here as well. It was it was a great campaign. We fought the swing against Labour nationally because we had a really energetic campaign. We got over 150 members out on the streets, which in a very safe Tory seat was was really encouraging to see. We also nominated Rebecca Long Bailey for leader, again against the kind of national trend. I think, like all comrades today, I'm here to fight for the soul of the party. That soul that I've seen in the last few years. It's really important. The NEC has a majority of left members. It is possible. It's obviously going to be a tough fight. And I support the LLA principles. I think the only one that I had any qualification about was the use of the term planned economy. I do a lot of work with economists and volunteer with an economics charity, and that's kind of, I guess, my area of expertise, if you like. And I think there are a lot of councils like Preston and Norwich doing a lot of great work, proving that this kind of monolithic approach to the economy isn't the way forward. But we can have democratic control, we can have socialist values with a lot more accountability when it's at a more local level. And again, in Nottingham, we have the publicly owned energy company. The monolithic approach I don't think works, but obviously, as the COVID crisis has proved, the state does have a key role in having the power to create the funding that these things need. So there's obviously overlap. There's going to be a huge role for the state, and as I think Alec said earlier, the need to have a different system. Capitalism is failing. Many of the candidates have said that. So yeah, clearly the state has a key role, but I think this approach to the kind of more piecemeal democratic control, and again within the party, is really a key thing for me. Again, really happy to stand on the issues of anti-Semitism, the definition of anti-Semitism with what the LLA has laid out. and to fight for members, you know, like Mark Wadsworth, who have been unfairly removed from the party, or members are kind of in limbo now in the same situation, or that have left the party before going through the kind of dehumanizing process for, you know, for just standing up for the rights of Palestinians, or, you know, for daring to speak up, that black members generally are discriminated against. It's, you know, the issue of anti-Semitism has been allowed to overshadow all the other issues of discrimination within the party, and I think the leaked report obviously has drawn that into sharp focus, where seemingly black members, you know, don't matter as much as any members that, you know, the Jewish members that have, you know, drawn attention to anti-Semitism when it is just criticism of Israel. So yeah, definitely solidarity on those issues. And yeah, so I did say I wouldn't speak for 4 minutes, and clearly I'm able to waffle a lot more than I thought. But yeah, really happy to see such a great range of candidates, and yeah, I think some really powerful voices today. And I'd be honoured if people do vote for me if I am nominated, but if not, I'm really happy to back several of the candidates I've heard today, if not all. So thanks for organising this, and yeah, thanks for listening to me today. Thanks.
Thanks very much, Steve. I should point out our request for, you know, or the need to fight for a planned economy is not like in the Soviet Union. That's not what we had in mind. You know, for us, a planned economy also starts from the bottom up. It has to be democratic. Otherwise, it just turns into something different very, very quickly. Phil Pope, after Crispin, will address some of the issues that have been in the chat about why we don't believe we're splitting the vote, and a quick explanation on the STV process. And I would also request that people keep in mind that after what happened in the last NEC by-elections, where 3 or even perhaps more candidates were suspended mid-election, we do want to make sure we have at least 9 good left-wing candidates lined up that we know will stand up, you know, for members and will speak out on various issues. So that's why we're not actually saying at the moment we're only picking 3 or whatever. We're doing a ballot, a democratic ballot of all our supporters. 2,400 of them can participate, and we want to rank people in a particular way. So whoever finds, you know, the comrades most the best, we'll put them on at the top, etc. But we will not choose just 3 of them for now. Elections only start in October, so there is time, A, to get suspended, B, to talk real rubbish or sign up to the BOD 10 pledges. I wouldn't put it past some candidates on who are identifying as left. So we want to keep it flexible because there is still a long time before elections actually start. So last candidate to address the audience now, and we've actually got 100, we had up to 120 people in the audience, which is fantastic, is Crispin Flintoff.
Thank you, Tina, and thank you everyone here who's organised the hustings. As other people have said, it's great that we actually have a discussion about this. Yeah, I'll start with the statement because everyone seems to put that at the end. I'll put that at the beginning. I agree with all of the statement, apart from I've got a few points. One is about open selection. I think that's a great thing, but if we have a really low membership, then left-wing MPs may face problems with that. So we have to be able to build a membership at the same time as fighting for open selection, because we don't want to lose good MPs. The other point is about the last point on the statement. I didn't want to answer the first 2 points that have been mentioned in this show, mostly because I'm in fear of any repercussions from the party for answering certain questions about anti-Semitism. There's a climate of fear in the party. I've known certain comrades who've been suspended recently for not particularly much at all, and I don't even want to say they are, and there's comrades on this chat who I feel really sad about, who are no longer in the party or suspended, and it breaks my heart. that people who are good campaigners are not actually able to participate. And I think this is the main reason why I'm standing for the NEC. Well, that's one of the reasons. The main reason is the party is rigged. The party finance is not transparent. We've got money being spent on stuff with no accountability. That money that was spent for those that paying off that case was not put to the NEC until it had been spent. Nepotism. People are selected for positions just because they know someone. It's corrupt. It's unaccountable, and there's no transparency. Members are demonized. Members are seen as cranks. Members are made into idiots. We're all seen as getting in the way of real politics. I came into the Labour Party because I thought this was the only hope we've got of stopping the Conservatives. And the amount of obstacles I've faced as a member is absolutely disgusting. I've put on more fundraisers for the Labour Party than anyone in the history of the Labour Party. Put on 250 shows all over the country to raise money to get people out to engage them. I've had no support from the party in 7 years. The only thing I've had of any connection with them is to pay £1,800 for a stand at the party conference to promote what I'm doing. I'm pretty fed up with the Labour Party, and I'm also a bit fed up with the left slate thing. I've not wanted to stand for the NEC out of loyalty to a slate, but when it comes down to it, some of the people who go on to the NEC are only there to build up their own career. I mean, some of them just don't want to do much. And the point is, in the last few weeks, I've been doing these shows on Zoom, Stay Home for Labour, and I've just found that the NEC has absolutely no authority. NEC members are not given information about accounts. The accounts themselves are totally unreadable. Decisions are made without the NEC. So what do we do if we get on the NEC? Do we just pretend that we're part of this charade, that there's democracy in the party? Or does someone actually stand up and say, we need to know what's going on. We are representing members. We have to fight for their voices to be heard. And I have no ambition to be an MP. I have no ambition to even be a councillor because I've never had any luck with the rigged system. It might be because I'm called Crispin. It might be because I wear a hat. It might be for anything, but it's not got anything to do with what I say or what my actions are. It's about who you know and all that kind of malarkey. There's so many bad things going on in the party that this discussion has covered so many issues. It's almost overwhelming. All I want to say is, if I get onto the NEC, or I hope that whoever gets onto the NEC, if they can actually rally members behind them when they get on there, if the party officers don't give information or the party officials don't support them, they should go back to members. Instead of just reporting it, say, come on, let's get a petition going. Let's have some support from the members. Let's show the party what we want to do. Otherwise, it's just not going to change. And we can't afford to have another 2 years where nothing changes. We get more despondent and more demoralised. And it could be the right wing running the Labour Party, or it could just be a load of bureaucrats. I'm so fed up that, yeah, I'm going to wind up because I'm wound up. I just hope that whoever it is that you vote for, select, actually just takes on that role, doesn't care about career, doesn't care about anything, just try and get the members to have a voice. I'll leave it there. Sorry, went on a bit long.
Thank you very much, Crispin. I think that's a very important point. Actually, I think one person on the NEC can make perhaps more difference than 9 quiet ones. If you have one person that will speak up and produce reports. We don't know what's going on. We don't know who votes for what. You know, it's like a secret club, and that's our leadership, our elected leadership. It's a bit of a joke. So yes, the LLA is very much part of trying to fight demoralization on the left, which is of course massive at the moment, and our attempts to democratize and you know the left certainly needs democratization and coming out in the open and being transparent and open about our politics, because we have kept that quite secret the last 4 or 5 years, and later more than that even. So the rest of the meeting, what we're proposing to do is Phil will quickly address the issue of STV, how it works and why we don't split the left vote in our view. And then we've selected 4 questions from the audience, which we'll put to the panelists all in one chunk. And you've got 3 minutes to come back to, you know, you can pick and choose now. You can pick which question you would like to answer, so that we can have a little bit more, can hear a bit more from you. So Philip, please.
Really great contributions from everyone there, some great candidates. I've seen there's a lot of questions on the chat, and a couple of people raised it in their contributions about the STV system. Not everyone is so familiar with it as others of us are. So the big misconception about it is that because there's 9 places being elected, people think they have 9 votes. You've got 1 vote. It's called single transferable vote. So that 1 vote will keep on tumbling down through your preferences until it lands with a candidate that eventually gets elected. Because there's 9 candidates in this election, 90% of people will get their vote go to someone who actually gets elected. So you can't only list up to 9 people, because there's what, 60 or more candidates in this election. You could list all 60 in order of your preference, and your vote will keep on tumbling down and down your preference until it lands with someone who is still in the race and eventually gets elected. So one strategy, and this is what the people who've drawn up the slates are doing, is to take a guess at what's the most number of people their slate might get elected, and they've decided on 6. So their strategy is get everyone to vote for those 6 people. Now that is a good strategy. It works really well for those 6 people. It doesn't work so well for all the other candidates who are told that they should think about withdrawing, and it doesn't work well for voters who are told that they're splitting the vote, and they get told that they don't have a real choice, vote for these people on the slate. Now, my view of what we should do, and what I will argue for, is that if you think a candidate's good, rate them number 1. Like, keep on ranking all the candidates you think are good. You don't have to stop at 9, keep going. If you know 20 candidates that aren't on the slate that you think are good, list them all, and then list the CLGA slate afterwards. That's how I'm going to vote, and that's what I'm going to argue we should be promoting. It doesn't. If there's someone on the CLG slate that no one voted for, then there is a risk they'll get eliminated and your vote won't go to them. But if there's people on that slate who aren't going to get any votes, we have to ask what the hell they're doing on the slate. And I think because Momentum are backing them, they will get thousands of votes. They won't get eliminated early. And I just don't think that's a worry in this election. You've got a chance to express your true preferences. So if you think there's a good candidate not on a slate, put them number 1 and just keep on going as long as you can be bothered to keep on reading statements. Maybe you won't get to 60, but do a good number and then put the CLG slate either last, or if you think one of the CLG slates is particularly good, put them higher up. But because of that, I don't think we risk splitting the vote. And what we do have the opportunity of doing is giving members a real choice, seeing if any of the independent candidates are popular, whether what they're saying rings true with people. And there's a chance an independent candidate might get elected. It's not impossible. and it will also put massive pressure in the future onto all candidates on the left addressing the issues you've addressed today, of listening to the members and taking up our concerns. So, yeah, express what you actually think. Like, look at all the candidates and rank them according to what you really believe. I think that's the best strategy for the left.
Thanks, Phil. I think this is the first time I've actually properly understood it myself. So that is actually, I think that's really good to know. As long as you put the CLGA people on there somewhere, the vote will go to them eventually. So that's actually a pretty good explanation. I hope you can write that down in a very basic way of explaining it. I think that's a good way. I should say before we bring in the questions that we have invited the CLGA 6 candidates as well. But unfortunately, they didn't even reply. So do with that as you wish. I think it's a bit rude personally, but they also haven't replied to our questions, needlessly to say. So we've selected a couple of questions in the background while the candidates were speaking. I'm reading out a couple of them, but also Bob and Adam are gonna ask their questions. Please keep it very short if you could. We're not going to quite stick to 2 hours, but we're trying to get as close to it as possible. Suzanne Gannon asked a very interesting question. What do you actually realistically think that if you're elected to the NEC, you could able to achieve in the current climate? And what, follow-up question, what would your first reform effort be? Second question, which has been asked a few times by various members, in the chat, is the question of institutional racism. We don't mean anti-Semitism, we mean anti-Black racism, anti-BAME racism. Is the Labour Party institutionally racist? If so, what can we do about it? And now I bring in Adam first from Socialist Appeal. We did invite various number of left-wing groups to send in questions, and Socialist Appeal, to their credit, have done so. So Adam, you have to unmute yourself, please.
Yeah, hi there. Can you hear me all right?
Very well, thank you.
Hi, yeah, thanks Tina for inviting us along, and thanks to all the candidates for their excellent contributions as well. In the invite that we received, the LLA says, I think correctly, that there is obviously a problem of demoralization and members leaving the party, and that the way to inspire people to stay and to fight is through a bold socialist program, and the need to build a bold socialist leadership that's going to put that forward. And I think Socialist Appeal, we completely agree with this perspective. So my question to the candidates is, how are you on the NEC going to help build that socialist leadership and put that socialist program out there? In particular, what role do you think the NEC socialist candidates can have in relationship to things like the Socialist Campaign Group, the Socialist Campaign Group of councillors as well as MPs, and more widely, obviously, the rejuvenated momentum that now has self-proclaimed socialists in its leadership? So that's my question really to all the candidates. How do we build that socialist leadership, and what role can you as an NEC member play within that? Thank you.
Thank you, Adam. Bob Davis next, and that's in representation of a number of comrades who've asked the same question. Thank you, Bob.
Okay, yeah, very interesting, Hustings. Thank you, all candidates, very interesting. Bob Davis from Swansea and West Wales LLA, and I'm also on the LLA organising group. This subject's been touched upon by various candidates throughout. It's on the question of the very vital question of anti-Semitism claimed to be within the Labour Party. Given its importance, and what I see now is clearly an attack on the left organising within the party, what specifically will you do to help those members falsely accused of anti-Semitism and suspended from the Labour Party, for them to get reinstated? Have you got any specific ideas over that particular question?
Thank you very much, Bob. Okay, I'm going to bring all the candidates back in now, perhaps not actually in reverse order, because that's comrades like Roger will have not spoken for 2 hours. So I'm going to mix it up a bit so you have to stay on your toes. So okay, I'll bring in, how about Roger, do you want to come in now? Are you ready?
Yes, okay, yes. Well, first of all, about how we're going to build the socialist case. Obviously, it's not just a question. Of course, if any of us that get on the NEC will have a voice, which will we'll be able to speak to the whole party. But we don't need even to wait for that. Being in this election is the important thing. You see, there's a lot of talk from the CLGA and so on about arithmetic. And arithmetic is important when it comes to deciding in the end how to vote. But what's more important is the politics. Because, you know, just like in a general election, it's a golden opportunity. You can knock on anybody's door and have a political discussion with them. In this NEC election, we can speak to every active party member in the GCs and in the individually to membership throughout the country. It's a huge opportunity, and that's why, as far as I'm concerned, the question of a slate, it was completely unnecessary to have a slate at this stage in any case, and I'm suspicious about why they even went through that process in the first place. The reason I say that is because we don't have to have a slate to decide which candidates have the best chance of winning. That will be determined by the number of nominations that we receive. I'll stand down. I've got no intention whatsoever of splitting the left vote. And if I get fewer nominations than other people, then I'll willingly stand down before it comes to the ballot process. But that is yet to be determined. And I would request also that all other left candidates would reciprocate. And if they get, you know, the CLGA candidates, for instance, if they get less votes than me and other comrades that are here now, then they also have, in my opinion, a responsibility to stand down in our favour too, because the important thing is not to pick and choose and to cherry pick, but to see who has the best chance of standing up. There's also, of course, the factor that I don't know quite what the centre-left grassroots alliance means. I'm not centre-left, and I'm not sure what grassroots alliance means either. But I mean, the important thing is that we have this chance to speak out and put socialist ideas. As for whether I would sell out, I mean, somebody put the question on the list, quite rightly, quite understandably. What about people, you know, what guarantee we got that you're not going to sell out and capitulate in the end? All I'd say from my point of view is that if I was concerned about my career, I've left it rather too late. And therefore, I'm, you know, I'm quite, I can be trusted, I think. I'm standing for one point of view only, and that is to put forward a forthright, clear socialist case. I don't know if can I say something about anti-Semitism now, or can I? 30
seconds.
Okay. Well, I just wanted to say, by the way, I do know something about anti-Semitism. I had, obviously, like everybody else, 2 grandparents. Both of them were refugees from racist terror in Eastern Europe. One of them was murdered in a racist murder in Liverpool after he arrived here. My father also, who was a left Labour MP, was one of the first to warn about the Holocaust at the time of, you know, at the time of, during the Second World War. And I'm just absolutely revolted and disgusted by the exploitation of this issue by the Tories, who have a long record of virulent anti-Semitism, and also by their shadows in the Labour Party, who are cynically exploiting this issue in order to carry through a witch hunt and a purge. So that's all I'd say. Thanks.
Thank you, Roger. Very powerful. Carol, would you like to come in now to address some of these questions? This will be the last chance for candidates to speak. Sorry, this is also your summing up, but if you could address some of the questions that have been asked from the audience, that would be great.
Yes, some tough ones there. What can we achieve and get on the NEC? Well, going in a bit gently, we should make sure that all the minutes and the voting lists are published straight away. That's something I think you can achieve. That's doable straight away. No one could possibly argue against minutes of meetings being published, because that's what we do throughout the Labour Party, throughout branch meetings, etc., etc. So the fact that I was actually shocked to find out that they don't publish minutes and voting lists. So I think that's something that's achievable almost straight away, because I can't see any argument against that. About racism, well, I was absolutely shocked to find out how bad it is in the Labour Party. We've got to call it out. We've got to bring motions to, because the NEC can bring motions to conference, we've got to bring motions to conference on the subject of racism. You know, we've got to call it out in public and we've got to deal with it. And that's the way I can see doing it. Putting these motions through to conference and having them discussed in the open and bringing it out and it should be discussed. Building suspended members. Well, I would call, in light of the leaked report and the allegations in that report, I'd call for all suspensions over the last 5 years to be dropped and for those cases to be reinvestigated. I think it's appalling that people don't even have the evidence against them given to them. How can you do a disciplinary procedure just in the business world, in employment? If you are suspended, you have to have the evidence, the things against you given to you so you can answer the allegations. How can that possibly be right? So I'd call for all those suspensions to be all those people to be reinstated and for the reinvestigation to take place on those suspended members, and of course the disciplinary process to be completely overhauled. People must have the evidence given to them. They must have the allegations given to them. How else can they defend themselves? It's just appalling. Building a socialist leadership. Whoa. Well, kick out all the right-wing members. No, I'm only joking, obviously. We maybe had a chance to do that later. On that one, how do we build a socialist leadership? Well, Roger said we have access to all the members. We can put stuff out there. We can raise questions and we can contact them. So I think that's the way to go there. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Carol. Okay, Chaudhry now, then Ekua, then Alec, please.
Okay. Can you hear me now? Lovely, thank you. I totally agree what Carol just said, and I think she just stole my ideas and words I was just about to say here. So thanks, Tina, for bringing me soon after Carol, otherwise I would have been repeating. Very first thing, what I would do if I be elected as NEC, exactly what the Carol said, making NEC more accountable. And how is that going to be possible? That when we as NEC members be actually communicating to members, making reports, who said what, who's representing who, clearly break down on which way the people have been voting on NEC to make sure if we go an CLP and if we go EC and if we are accountable to our members, why not NEC being accountable to CLP? Why not it being accountable to general members who pay the dues, who actually make the party run? So it would be very important to get NEC be accountable and its members and NEC members attending CLP meetings and across the country just to be more approachable. I mean, when I was trying to get hold of some of the NEC members last year, so I was getting the kind of impression, sorry, we do not have a time to reply and to look at each and every emails we get. So it was quite upsetting that because there are people on the NEC who do not wish to be communicated, who do not wish to be contacted by CLP and members who want to raise their concern about the party, how the party is being run. So that's the very basic thing I would say to be done if I get elected on NEC. On this then. In regard to anti-Semitism and the people who have been suspended, expelled, I think it's quite important, and I did mention in my pledges that we got to have a fair, transparent, open system which can be seen to deliver natural justice. And all members who have been suspended or expelled in the last 5 years and so, their cases have to be reviewed. This is what I will campaign and push for by independent and fair panel and a committee or commission appointed by the party to review their cases and to deliver the justice which wasn't delivered in the cases first place. So this is what I would say, rather than just expecting everyone to be on the same line. So, and for all the future suspension, and to make our complaints system much more fair, transparent, it has to be made by the NEC to make sure that natural justice can be seen delivered. This is what I keep on saying. basic root of that would be to see natural justice being delivered, no suspension based on political views. This is very important. So in regard to how we can make our movement more socialist, how can we make, we are a socialist movement. We should not have any place among ourselves who's not socialist, who's not, our party is left. I don't understand why we could get divided into left and right. We are all left. Some are more left, some are central left, and some are probably not going to vote left, but we have to be, I mean, how we can have a right wing, and how could we have someone right in our party? I'm not saying that they should be expelled, as just Carol said. No, we're not. I'm not supporting anything. We should all be supporting the socialism. We should always be supporting the socialist policy agreed by thousands of delegates through the conference delegate on this. In regard to the Black movement, I totally support our Black Lives Matter movement, and it was appalling that our leader called it as a moment. I seek full unconditional apology. I seek full apology if this has been given to the ex-staffer. Why not be apology to Don Butler? Why not be apology to Donna Abbott and Clive Lewis, who've been subject to this ill treatment? I would call out unconditional apology, and to make sure that we do not take Black votes granted. They have to be recognised.
Thank you, Chaudhry. Right-wingers in the quite a few. I know what you're saying. Okay, Alec next, and then, Ekua, sorry. Ekua next, then Alec, then Joyce.
Hi, thank you, Tina. Thank you, everyone, for your contributions and the questions and the Q&A. As I said, I haven't had a chance to answer them in situ, but I will commit to answering them all in writing and share them with you. What can I realistically do on the NEC? I absolutely echo what Carol and other members have said around communication. I think that's key, and I think it's my strength. I think publishing minutes and other documents is one thing, but I think also about trying to break that information down into accessible ways, so using video, podcasts, working with members around that. I'm a real collaborator. I think we would have to. I think one of the real issues you have to think about is the scale of information, and also the scale. If I want to represent 500,000 members, we need structures by which that communication happens, and we've got them. They're not being used properly. So I would want to use new technologies to make sure that it's a two-way exchange, that I'm communicating what I'm standing for members, and members are telling me what to stand for. And yeah, communication. And it can start with the basics about absolutely publishing the documents that we're working with. It is ridiculous. And also having a really accessible email. We've found just being able to write to and find a way of writing and contacting NEC members impossible. I would definitely challenge that and do better, much better. What can I do about racism in the party? I tell you what we all can do. We can get better informed. Racism in the party is in the party because racism is in society. And that's there through a sort of systemic process of disinformation, uninformation, deliberate making of people to be ignorant about the real issues. And it comes out of our history and it's current. People talk about slavery and the African slave trade, about, oh, that was a terrible thing that happened in the past. Yes, it bloody was, but it also continues to impact. We're paying off, all of us pay the debt based on the money that we pay to slave trade as compensation for giving up their slaves. This is like, it's insane. And we need to understand how much it's part of the society so that we understand how we can fight it. One of the biggest problems I've had is that only after meetings have my left comrades come up and they said, was that racist? How could you? And it's like, yeah, support me in the room when I'm being vilified. Don't come after quietly and sort of like give me a sort of pat and a hug. I like a pat and a hug, but actually have the tools to be able to challenge alongside me. So that's one of the things I would really champion: education, political education. So political education around the history of racism is really vital, and to have that connected to real actions and how it's still impacting, and for people to connect the two and act on the two and act internally on their own prejudices they bring. How do we build a socialist leadership? Oh, I guess I want to be the leader, the socialist leader that you want me to be, to stand up for my principles. to work in partnership, in collaboration. That's the absolute foundation of my life's work, is to work in collaboration, to be inspirational, to understand and trust that every single member has as much to offer as I. I think one of the reasons that power corrupts, and it has been spoken to, is people actually start believing in themselves as being better. We're better at some things, and so is every single member has a skill and a talent and a strength to bring. And I think holding on to that reality, holding on to the humility that I have a strength and I believe it I would bring to bear within this, but so do every member in the party. I'm going to talk about anti-Semitism. I have to say the thing that absolutely bugs me is the idea that on the left is promoted that anti-Semitism is only used as a weapon against the left and that it doesn't exist in the party. Of course it exists in the party, as do other forms of racism. And I think it's really important that we look at that and we take it honestly, because I found myself, my own critical facility of being able to actually say, if someone is accused of oppressive practice, to listen to the accuser being wiped out because it has been systematically used in a way as a weapon against the left. It has been, but it doesn't mean it exists. So I agree with everybody else in terms of we need to re-look at the cases, both the complaints and the disciplinary cases that have happened, because a lot of complaints haven't been dealt with. A lot of complaints of anti-Semitism haven't been dealt with. I did a thorough analysis of the leaked report with a group of Black sisters, and some real cases about it were also not taken up and not challenged because they didn't fit the right factional path. There wasn't someone they wanted to address or attack. So I think that can only be dealt with a complete overhaul of our complaints procedure. I can say though, I sort of understand why the party is in such a mess. It was never set up to be a mass party. We are a mass party, and now we need to have the patience to put into, and the fight and the spirit. And this is about keeping people, have the patience to put into place the systems that are needed for a mass party, because they were never there. And the people at the top have tried to not put them, they don't care if people leave. That's the other reality. Oh, we're all going to be leave. They don't care. So we have to care at the grassroots level. I love that sign, Tina, and I will stop just there.
Thank you. Ekua was better than shouting over you. That was very good. Thank you. While you were talking, it did occur to me, somebody made a suggestion a little while ago of an alternative NEC and meetings of an alternative NEC that comrades can listen to and participate, which I think is actually quite a brilliant idea, of left-wing comrades who've got something to say on the matter and who continue to discuss issues that are going on and doing the things that the real NEC should be doing. But anyway, that's just a little idea there, but I quite like that of having a NEC on Zoom. That would be something. Okay, next is Alec, please.
Okay, thank you. I agree with Carol's points about some of the first things that can be done to get the minutes, and I agree with Ekua's ideas about reporting back via social media videos, etc., to make it accessible. One of the biggest campaigns I got involved with in the Labour Party was the campaign for open selection of MPs. I wrote the rule change for that to happen. I argued successfully for it through the CLP, so that it ended up on the conference agenda in 2018. And we had a fantastic campaign there, working with many different people across the left. We used social media, there was a fringe meeting, there was Crispin Flintoff's Democracy Roadshow, all these sorts of things. And we had huge support amongst the members. And if it was down to the members, that change would have been implemented, and it would have been implemented because the work of people like myself and others had done to build that campaign. Now, we ended up losing that vote ultimately because of the NEC, and in particular because of the some of the trade union affiliates to that NEC. We had the support of the Fire Brigade Union, which was fantastic, and we were expecting the Unite Trade Union to also back us, because Unite had a policy to back open selection, but the leadership changed their mind on it. Now, what I've learned from that is you can successfully build change from the grassroots. You really can get massive support for it, but it's only half the battle. The other half of the battle is within the trade union movement. And so anything that we do in the Labour Party has to be linked to the trade union movement if we're going to see it succeed, because of the way the Labour Party is set up. And so in terms of building that bold socialist leadership, for me, it's also going to be about building it within the trade unions. I'm a member of Unison. We've got a general secretary election coming up this year. If socialists are able to win the leadership of the trade unions, you will change the Labour Party, because the NEC seats will change, the votes at conference will change, all that sort of thing. So for me, that would be the way that I would do it. In terms of racism, ultimately, racism is something that comes from the top. It comes from the top to divide everybody else. And it can only really take hold if there's ignorance in abundance. So our weapons against racism are education, and they're also solidarity. We can learn the principles of Cable Street in '36, when we saw Jewish people and Irish people and working class people in general with socialists working together to literally stop racism and fascism. That is the kind of approach that is going to be needed to seriously tackle it. In terms of anti-Semitism, I think actually probably the best thing we can do to help members is, if you look at Roger Silverman, the stories that he was giving there, someone like Roger Silverman, I think, would be the perfect candidate for the NEC to help members with issues on anti-Semitism, and I'll certainly be backing him. I think what I'll finish with is, I haven't obviously got time to answer all the questions, but I do have an email. It's just Alec for NEC. It's Alec for NEC @gmail.com. Email me and I will respond. And I think in terms of the hustings, I think it's fantastic. Maybe we need more of these as we go through the nomination period, maybe on specific questions so we can get into a bit more detail. And finally, we talked about the STV system of this election. We haven't talked about the timetable of this election so much, and that's equally important, because we've got nearly 2 months of nominations, then there's about a 3-week gap, and then there's another month for voting. It's almost like if you imagine it in a game of football, you've got first half nominations, then you've got your half-time break, then you've got second half, which is the voting. Now, during that half-time period, so i.e. once we've got all the nominations in, I think all the left-wing candidates, so everyone here and the CLGA candidates, need to come together at half-time in a kind of team Zoom huddle with mass membership participation. And on the basis of the nominations we've had and the campaigns that we're running and the tactics that are going to be best to win the election, we should come to an agreement there on how many candidates, what candidates, etc. And I would urge candidates here to back that call and do our level best to ask the CLGA candidates to do likewise. Thank you.
Yes, and to start talking to us. That'd be a good start. We can see you again. Yep.
Okay, very brief. Right, we need to have more transparency on the NEC. Absolutely. And we need to use all the different mediums that are available to us today to keep communication going, because communication is an art, and we need that in the NEC. If we're ever going to be accountable, because members elect you for you to be where you are, and we're there to represent them. So we need to stand up to that. And of course, we need, with the communication, if we're communicating with our CLPs, etc., they will also be sharing with us different points of views, which we need to actually be there to answer to those members. We look at the question about racism in the Labour Party. Is it a question? It's a factual. Racism is high, it's rife in the Labour Party, and we must stand up, speak out, and do something about it. There is no way we will be moving forward as a party, representing all as a socialist group of people, without dealing with the racism that exists within the party. We need to be in touch with a lot of the CLPs. Let we get personal information about what they're going through. A lot of people are actually going through some personal difficulties in their various CLPs and being hindered from progress, and based upon simple what? The color of one's skin. So it needs to be addressed. By what format? We can have political education, but by whom? The political and some of these education need to be done by Black people. Some of these training are being given by people who don't understand, never felt it, don't know what it is. So long may we stand up and may we speak out and address those issues that are impacting us in our party. And we need to look at our disciplinary process that is in the party. It needs to be addressed. We cannot and should not have people suspended and expelled without knowing exactly sometimes what they are for and unjustly expelled from the party. How do I feel about this? I feel maybe we should go back to the last 5 to 10 years of people who are being expelled from the party, which I can give an example of Mark Wadsworth. You know, all those things need to be addressed. I know how it impacts and affects people as they go along through their daily lives. It's unfair, it's unjust, and must never be on the back burner. Those of us who are putting ourselves forward to go on the NEC, I hope we would never go there and just warm seats. We will make sure that our voice be heard and that those that we are being dwelt to be represent, we have been called upon to represent, we will do that with such fairness, integrity, such honesty in every way. I want there, of course, we need to build a better socialist in terms of leadership. I want there to be members to also be informed and members to be given all the support and to be valued. We have some champion campaigners year after year within our party that are such a valuable force within the party. And I want to recognize all those champions who are doing their bit, no matter how small it is in their corners. They are the backbone of the party, and I want their voice to be listened to. So long may we continue to champion our cause. And believe you me, a vote for Joyce Reid as your representative is a sure way to go. A transparency, the person will stand up, will not hide in the corner, and will be there to represent you at its highest form. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Joyce. Okay, Ahmad is next, please.
Honestly, I learned a lot from all the panelists. I didn't have all these great ideas what a NEC member can in the NEC. And I'm sure whoever will go to NEC from amongst us will take all these discussion, all these ideas to put in place to have an effective role as an NEC member. What we can achieve, I think the first thing which we need to achieve is to return 9 socialists as NEC CLP representative. That will be our first victory. And this victory is very much possible. In the recent leadership election, the people who voted for the leaders, now they realized what kind of choices they have made. And our party is over 500,000 people. Majority of them, they are socialist. All of us, the panelists, we are active members in our CLPs, in broader membership. We have a discussion every day, and we have a feeling that people are regretting the choices they have made in the leadership election. And if we will return 9 strong socialists in the NEC, we can change the whole direction of the party. First thing which I would like to talk about is Adam's question, the demoralizing which is going on. The right wing of the party will do all their best to demoralize the party membership. That's the easy way to get rid of left membership, to provocate them, and then there is a lot much people who will make their own choices to leave the party. The first thing we need is to retain the membership and to increase the membership. The only challenge to right wing in the Labour Party is a majority of the membership, because smaller parties are able to be managed, which right wing was doing for many, many decades in the Labour Party. So as soon as our membership, our party political agenda entirely changed. We need to retain party membership. We need to increase party membership, and NEC can make a big role in it by connecting with the membership. Racism obviously is an issue. The leak report, which I think should be made available to the party membership so that they can read the other side of the story as well. What kind of racism the Black people, the ethnic minority members, they are facing. So that report is important. And on anti-Semitism, as I already said, that this is an issue, we need to tackle it along with other the hate issues, the other racial issues, the other discrimination, and there shouldn't be denial that our society, our party is ideal and equal for all these people. We have issues, we have to confront it. Thank you.
Thank you, Comrade Ahmad. Okay, the last three speakers are then Mark, Steve, and Crispin. And I would urge comrades in the audience, if you do want to participate in our ballot, you would have to sign up to the Labour Left Alliance. Then you will be able to vote on the candidates who've spoken today and in which order we want to continue campaigning for them. So, Mark, please.
If I can summarise the questions really is that have been asked, and forgive me if I've misinterpreted them, but it is, do you have the strength and character to progress a socialist agenda within the National Executive Committee? And the answer to that question is simply yes, I do. But it's evidence-based. It's looking at my background and what I've been able to achieve over the many years, be it working in the United States on the death penalty or in the National Health Service. But I want to pick on two examples, really, which really, I think, expose some of the big issues that we face going forward. The first is when I was representing Jeremy at the National Executive Committee, and it was clear that we had an uphill struggle when it came to the fact that most of the Parliamentary Labour Party had resigned in an attempt to ensure that he did not get the 20% to remain on the ballot. And it all came down to the interpretation of the rules, a hope from the right that they would interpret that he could not automatically restand and he needed those MPs that were not there for him. What surprised me most about that NEC meeting was two things. First of all, that none of the NEC members have the minutes or the agenda or any of the papers to discuss probably the most important issue they would have had to discuss in the history of the NEC. They just didn't have it. They weren't given it. It was kept to them. And it highlighted to me that although we have the NEC, that a lot of stuff in fact takes place outside that room in small committees, in small meetings, and things are prevented from being seen by the actual whole of the National Executive Committee. And it goes back to Crispin's point, really, about the fact that we don't have that transparency and we don't have that accountability. And that's one thing that we need to change and fundamentally change if we're going to have a progressive NEC going forward. And that will be my priority. The second example, if I can very briefly say this, when I came back from Ramallah and I wanted to set up Labour Friends of Palestine, Tony Blair was the Prime Minister. The NEC was completely against me. They did not want that to be set up. The chair of the NEC at the time set up a large committee made up of MPs and peers, and I had to appear at the House of Commons to persuade them to allow me to set up an organisation called Labour Friends of Palestine. They didn't want it to be called Palestine. They didn't want it to be called Labour Friends of Palestine. I had to battle for them to allow me to set this up. And the only way that I could allow to be set up Labour Friends of Palestine is if I called it Labour Friends of Palestine in the Middle East. And that was the situation, but the battle that I found, and now that was 12, 14 years ago now, and we've come on strength and capacity and a huge amount of members of parliament that are involved. But it took a strength and character and the ability to stand up to that, to fight for what you believe in. That's what I'm able to do. If I was on the NEC, I have the strength and the character, not just as a socialist, but as the experience, the ability to get things done and to challenge the establishment and to change things. So I hope I've answered the questions that have been answered. But in short, as I say, I do have the experience to make a difference.
Thank you very much, Mark, and thanks for taking the time to come to this meeting. Steve, and then Crispin.
Yeah, I'll try and be succinct and stick to the questions that were asked. I guess the first one on the NEC, what would you do first? There's obviously a long list of things, and coming this late in the order of speakers, most of the things that have been said, I completely agree with. The transparency, just the basic things that aren't being done right now. That's key. But I think the first thing, my first priority would be getting a commitment from the leadership to stand by the socialist policies of the last two manifestos, because we all know that they're moving away from that subtly. I mean, they haven't announced any policies, but every noise that's been made so far is that actually Keir Starmer stood, I will stand by the policies. He's moving away now, and we can't allow that to happen. It's deliberate drift. So the first thing, commitment for those policies, and obviously if we do get that majority on the NEC, we will have some leverage to do that, and policy is obviously key to all of this. But like I say, completely agree with transparency and with the other issues of the NEC that are currently, they're not doing the things they need to do for members. On the socialist policies and leadership, obviously that's a big part of the thing I just mentioned, but this is a grassroots thing. I think Crispin mentioned it in the Q&A, and also other members I've seen recently talking about funding. At the moment, CLPs get peanuts to run on. We can't really run effective campaigns without the people that are actually working on, the activists putting their hands in their pockets. The activists give up time already. The money's just not there. And when you're trying to fight in marginal and safe Tory seats, the National Party obviously don't prioritise giving CLP. So you're never going to turn the tide in a seat like Harborough, because you need to build this up over years, and without funding you can't do that. So I think funding is key, allowing members to be active all year round and not just throwing them a few grand at election time and expecting them to work miracles. On anti-Semitism and racism, I think to answer the question that was asked as much specifically as I can, the members that have been suspended or expelled because of anti-Semitism, clearly that happened under a disciplinary process that wasn't up to scratch. So all of those members should have a right of appeal, a right. Obviously, some expelled members may not feel they want to be part of the party now, but there should be that offer that you can now rejoin to, I think, as Carol said, to refight the case, to appeal the case, and suspended members should be invited to do the same under a new system, obviously not under the current system, because the same result is likely. So we need to A, offer them that right of appeal, and then B, under a system that actually works, that works for natural justice, and that that is modern. And I think Carol said that there's no reason why we can't do this. And Ekua again said that this is a big mass movement party, that the processes aren't really built to handle. So we need to, that's a huge thing for the NEC over the next few years. And without that socialist majority, we have no chance of changing that. And on racism, I think, again, on that NEC, I would push Keir Starmer to kind of make some kind of amends for that moment comment on BLM, and the kind of direction he's showing so far with a disregard for black members, that obviously black members that have been mistreated, discriminated against, and generally marginalised, they don't have any confidence right now that that's going to change. So I think Carmen and others have mentioned in the chat African Holocaust, and just generally the British state's behaviour in Africa. Keir Starmer can take a clear lead in saying about, as Jeremy Corbyn proposed, education on black history and education on British state racism and the way that the British state has behaved. In the same way Germany forced its citizens to confront Nazism, that confrontation of imperialism hasn't ever happened. It is unlikely to ever happen in Britain as it stands. So I think Keir Starmer can take a clear lead there, and as socialists we should be pushing him to do so, and to confront that anti-black racism that includes anti-Semitism clearly. I think that'll be a good thing for the NEC to try and push for immediately in the moment where you have that mass movement behind it.
Thank you, Steve.
Thank you again for holding this meeting. The question of how we can promote socialism, I think that I have to look at what what got me into all this stuff was people like Tony Benn, who encouraged people to get into politics, inspired people, and that's what happened with Jeremy Corbyn. He inspired people to get active. We have to inspire people in the party, and we have to have solidarity. We have to have solidarity. And I'm really disappointed that the slate have not come onto this chat, because that's the kind of thing that we need to encourage. We need to get together. This is a very helpful forum. It always makes me feel more part of when I'm with other comrades, and you know, that's part of the whole thing. We have to get together, not be in different silos fighting for different cliques and playing politics like the right wing do, where they like to have a bit of, you know, who's their mate and who's getting onto this and all that stuff. We need to get things out in the open, and we need to get the issues out in the open as well. Not just talk about who we are and what we are and how great we are, but actually say, this is what we want to do. These are the points we're going to try and get done. So, for example, with anti-Semitism, I think it's important, this Ford inquiry, I think we should all get as many people as possible to respond to that Ford inquiry. The deadline's not very long. I think it's 2 weeks from now. I've been informed that the Ford inquiry is not a whitewash, that this guy who's taking it is going to look into this into detail. It could totally change the situation we're in. We're all despondent about what's happened recently, but this Ford inquiry could really change that around. I think we should all be encouraged to submit answers to that. And with the racism, I've been totally appalled at the stuff that Diane Abbott has to deal with. I put a show out, a celebration of Diane Abbott's 33 years as an MP, and it was really unbelievable how many people love Diane Abbott across the country and how inspiring she is to so many people. I invited the leader of the party to put a video in, and he didn't bother to reply to 3 emails. I also have noticed that the clips I've put out have been full of horrible comments from people, and I've never had that with any other shows I've put on. So to me, it is clear evidence that there's a problem with racism in the party, and we have to show solidarity with black MPs who have been put through a hell of a lot of trouble over these years. Diane Abbott is a real hero, and as John McDonald said in that show, she should have a statue. We should have a statue for Diane Abbott somewhere. We should try and fight for that. Got so many other things, and I'm frazzled. One of the things I think is very important is that we devolve power away from the centre of the party. That is one of the reasons the NEC is in such a bad way, is the bureaucracy has so much power, the NEC doesn't. If we gave CLPs 50% of member subscriptions, they would have enough money to start doing things and encouraging activism and inspiring people. When that money is all in the centre, it just goes nowhere. Where does that money go? We don't know, because the accounts aren't transparent. If, for example, a CLP had 1,000 members and 50% of their subs went to the CLP, that would be 25,000 quid a year. The CLP could really do stuff. I mean, if you look at Broxtow's CLP, they've got a community hub. They've fed 20,000. They've had 20,000 food parcels during the lockdown. They're part of the community. That's the kind of thing we have to be doing. But most CLPs don't have an office. They've got no money. They haven't got a Labour club. These were the things that the party was founded on, all these people on the ground. The grassroots was strong. The grassroots is being totally killed. Scotland and the Red Wall seats, because there's no MPs there, they haven't got an office, they haven't got any resources. So we've got to change the money situation. We've got to get the money away from the centre out to the communities and the CLPs. Yeah, and just finish on this. This has been really constructive. I think it's really good idea from Alec that there are continual Zoom meetings between the candidates and members, and that we keep this going. The problem in the past is we've just been given a 200-word statement by a slate and said just vote for them. That's not a way to get people behind you. We've got to fight better. If we want to win this NEC election, we've got to do more than the other side, and that means using Zoom. I mean, Zoom is a fantastic resource. We can get the message out. We can get hundreds and hundreds of people all attending meetings. So maybe we should use that and be more transparent ourselves. We have to be as we want the NEC to be, and not try and play it in a funny way like some other kind of people are doing, not naming names, but I'll leave it there. Thanks.
Thank you very much, everybody. That was great. Phil wants to say a few things before we close down.
Right, yeah. I just want to say thank you to everyone who's come today. I knew some of the candidates already, and it was good to see you. It's been fantastic to meet those of you I didn't know. It's been a really, really high level of debate and some great points raised in the chat as well. And there's obviously some issues raised in the chat that we all need to think about strategy. We all need to decide what to do now. So, as I mentioned at the beginning, the LLA will be balloting its members. We'll open that in a few days' time. If you want to vote in that ballot, please sign up to the LLA. It's free to join, and if you can find it through our homepage, or it's labourleft.org/appeal to sign up to us. Then we'll run the ballot for a couple of 2 or 3 weeks, I think, and then we will decide how to proceed with that on our organising group and at our conference.
So thank you again for the whole of the meeting. Right, cheers.
Right, so we'll put candidate statements, everybody who's participated, we will put that up on our website, also your answers to our platform, etc. And we'll meet again.
Thank you for everything, Tina. Well organised.
Thank you.
Yeah.